there is a government party and an opposition party. The motion is placed in the House by the Prime Minister, who is also the leader of the House. The role of the opposition party is always to place constructive arguments against the bill. Today's motion before the House is democracy is a myth. Representing the government side is Borishal Cadet College, Borishal, and is representing the opposition bench is Rajuk Uttara Model School and College, Dhaka. The government side is being represented by Abdul Toyab Akon of Borishal Cadet College, Borishal, who is the Prime Minister and the leader of the House. Nazmul Hassan is the member of the cabinet and is in charge of Ministry of Law and Parliamentary Affairs. And Shafkat Shahryar is the member of the Treasury bench. The opposition bench is being represented by Manshia Anis of Rajuk Uttara Model School and College, Dhaka, who is the leader of the opposition. Maliha Ashrabi is the deputy leader of the opposition, and Anika Tabassum Oishi is the member of the opposition party. The honorable adjudicators of this session are Hassan Mahmoud Biplab, eminent debater and lawyer; Dr. P.K. Borua, ex-principal, Agrashar Girls College, Chittagong; G.M. Nizamuddin, principal and head, Oxford International School, Dhaka; Sujan Sharma, eminent debater and private service holder; Naimul Azam Khan, eminent debater and secretary, Parliamentary Standing Committee and Ministry of Education, Bangladesh National Parliament. The Honorable Speaker of the House is Mohammad Fazlul Haq, retired Wing Commander and former UNOPS advisor. Before the House starts its proceedings, let me inform you about the order and time allocation for each debater. Prime Minister, 4 minutes. Opposition Leader, 5 minutes. Member of the Cabinet, 5 minutes. Deputy Leader of the Opposition, 5 minutes. Treasury Bench Member, 5 minutes. Opposition Member, 5 minutes. The Opposition Leader will get another 3 minutes for rebuttal, and the Prime Minister will get the last 4 minutes to wind up his party stance. All the members of the competing teams, the adjudicators, the invited guests, and other members of the audience will comprise the members of the House. I now most humbly request the Honorable Speaker to start today's proceedings. Honorable Speaker.
The motion before the House is democracy is a myth. As you know, the government party is represented by Borishal Cadet College, Borishal. On the other hand, opposition party is represented by Rajuk Uttara Model School and College, Dhaka. The proceedings now is open. I now request Prime Minister to deliver his speech.
I, the Prime Minister of People's Republic of Bangladesh, propose today the following bill. Democracy is a myth. At the very outset of my speech, let me define two of my keywords here, democracy and myth. Democracy is a form of government where all eligible citizens participate equally through elected representatives in the proposal, development and creation of laws. It encompasses social, cultural and economic conditions that enable free and equal practice of political self-determination. And according to Oxford Dictionary, the word myth refers to something which many people believe but does not really exist. Here one thing to be mentioned, that by the word democracy, I mean concrete democracy, which fulfills all the by definition fundamental conditions of democracy. So what I propose today here is the practice of pure or absolute democracy does not really exist, cannot even exist. My arguments start with the Lincoln's definition. Democracy is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. Now let's start analysis of the people. It in simple terms means that people are the most important while dealing with the practice of democracy. But unfortunately this is not true in the real world. Politicians take major decisions which affect the life of the masses in the practical world. In the Parliament House, they will argue over everything except those issues which affect them directly. Next, by the people. This needs no explanation. Actually, in democracy, should be initiated by the people. But it is money that talks during the election, not the people. The votes of the suffering masses are just bought by the rich. And finally, for the people. The situation here is that one person, obviously a rich one, is elected into the office, but unfortunately, the real power lies in the hand of those wealthy people who gets nominated to be the ambassadors, generals, district executives, etc. And as soon as they get elected, to work for the people is far away. They don't even bother to think for the people. They just think of themselves. So I think Lincoln's definition itself makes it clear that democracy is a myth. And if you are not happy with Lincoln's definition, in that case, let me jump back to the first definition I made. According to that definition, democracy asks for eligible representative. And the so-called eligible representatives are selected through elections. And here lies the problem. Most people don't know much about sociology, economics, anthropology, then political science, civic engineering, agricultural science, etc. So they are not able enough to hold a well-informed opinion about how the state should be governed. So they make their political choices based on advertisement, campaigning, peer conformity, zeitgeist, and above all, how much charismatic and appealing one's marketing department can make him out to be. So democracy inevitably ends up as a rule by those who are best at marketing or advertisement. As long as people elect the person with the best posters or TV spots, you might as well sell the positions. In democracy, the game is all about getting elected, and once a man is elected, he is free to ignore any promises he made during the campaign. There is no such consequence for this failure to govern, aside from the theoretical risk of not being re-elected next time. Democracy gives free rein to petty selfishness. Most people will, at an unconscious level, vote to the person who they think will do the most for them personally. Lower their taxes, increase their employment prospects, make their health more affordable, etc. And the problem is that voting based on someone's own personal interest will often conflict with what is best for the society as a whole, especially in long term. But the politicians, they have no other choice other than just fulfilling the selfish wants of the highest possible number of individuals who are likely to vote. These are some inevitable problems which will arise and must arise when you're going to practice democracy. The word democracy first came into being in about 450 BC. So in last 2,450 years, it has not yet been able to be implemented perfectly. The rest of the logics behind democracy for being a myth, for being impossible to implement, will be shown by the concerned minister and the member of the Treasury bench afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And now I request Leader of the Opposition to deliver her speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the floor. The motion raised in today's House is, this House believes that democracy is a myth. I stand in front of you today strongly opposing the motion. In today's debate, our case stance is, democracy is the embodiment of people's will, desire, effort, and opinions. Denying democracy is like denying the desires and wills of the people. But nothing is truer than the negotiations and agreements of the people, right? So these wills and opinions of the people ought to exist. This democracy ought to exist. So these, and it most definitely, what I'm going to prove to you here is it most definitely does exist. In today's debate, our team will propose 3 arguments. Democracy, the best system, which I shall elucidate. My second speaker will talk about check and balance process through which the government Prime Minister said there isn't any provision for scrutinization of the flaws of the government in democracy, which shall be proved by my second speaker in her speech. We will also be talking about manifestation of people's wills and desires. Our third speaker shall identify the clash points in today's debate and draw an analogy between the 2 cases arguments. I'll be refuting some points of the Prime Minister within my constructive. As he said, I completely agreed with him. Democracy, the system that is prevailing presently in today's world, is representative democracy. In representative democracy, all eligible citizens participate in the proposal, creation, and development of law, as he said, through elected public representative. This is where the clash lies, basically. Let's say a teacher enters a class and says, a class of 20 students, which subject do you want to study, physics or chemistry? 14 students raise their hands, they want to study physics. They're definitely going to teach physics in the class, right? That is elected public representative. Public, they might be ignorant, but everybody cannot be wrong. And that is the idea of elected public representative. As the Prime Minister said, as quoted by Abraham Lincoln, government of the people, by the people, for the people. That is the democratic government. It acts as a mirror, reflecting people's opinions, wills, and wills. As long as people exist, democracy will perpetuate.
Yes.
What information?
May I ask you a question that what happens if most of the students doesn't like to study?
That is the idea of elected public representative. Majority, let's say one person say we do not want to do it. Do you have any alternative to the process, Prime Minister? In terms of running a country, do you actually have an alternative? I really don't think so. One more thing, name one country. A democratic country has accountability to its citizens, unlike the dictator-run regime where actions are arbitrary and despotic. After the Arab Spring, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt got out of the clutches of the vicious dictators. But unfortunately, Syria is still under the repressive regime of Bashar al-Assad. So before you raise your voice against democracy, take a glance at Syria and then infer. Democracy is not just a fairy tale, it is a reality check. Government has to play a pivotal role in reforming the lives of their citizens and make sure that they do not create aberration to the rule. If the government is found flawed, the government will be abdicated. That is the beauty of the citizens, acting as the sovereign invisible power, evidently running the country. Thus, democracy exists. Having all that said, I earnestly hope that, Honourable Speaker, you could comprehend our point of view and concur with us that democracy is not a myth, rather it's an authentic reality. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Leader of the Opposition. Now I request Member of the Cabinet to deliver his speech.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me the floor in this session of Parliament. I have been listening to my opposition leader being spellbound for the last few minutes. It seems to me that my dear opposition leader was very much busy with recalling his sweet memories while another Prime Minister raised the bill in this session of Parliament. From the very beginning, we are asserting that we have no headache with the governmental system democracy. Rather, we are arguing the predicaments that we face while implementing democracy. Now, for your better understanding, some of them are as follows. Number one, quantity rather than quality. Democracy lays emphasis on quantity as opposed to quality. Every person, whether equal, is treated equal, whether stupid or genius, while inequality is a common biological phenomenon. Again, this system gives birth to two classes, majority and minority, where minority is always bound to accept the majority, doesn't matter whether they are logical or not. For this very reason, famous political scientist Marvin Sinking once said, democracy is two wolves and the lamb voting on what to eat for dinner. Then my next point is inefficiency. By definition, democracy demands efficient leaders to run the government. But what do you think, my dear opposition leader, in a country like Bangladesh, where 40% of the people don't even how to write their names, and 20% of the rest know only are enough to produce efficient leaders?
You call democracy a myth basing only on the democracy of Bangladesh?
Actually, I have told that there are a lot of reasons. Among them, one of the reasons is regarding the situation in our country. I can show you some more reasons comparing to the other countries of the world, which are not illiterate or uneducated. Okay, I think you have got your answer. Now, let's move to the point number 4, diseducation. Every voter thinks himself equal to every other voter and fit to govern. As a result, these masses are less interested in the advancement of science, art, culture, literature, etc. So democracy, by definition, encourages the voter to get uneducated, but it demands eligible representatives along with eligible citizens.